Welcome to Fresh Off the Boat. I'm delighted to uh, be interviewing Tanvi Kumar. Tanvi is a student I've known. She's graduated from Heritage School in 2019 and then chose to go to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. She is also one of the students who was multifaceted, and I was nudging her to go to a university which was not necessarily just an art school. So I'm really curious to know how this 1 year has panned out and whether I was wrong or you were right about going just to the art school, specialty programs in art and graphic design in particular. So the first question to you, Tanvi, what was it that you were thinking when you had choices? You had regular schools like Tufts and very fine institutions, but not necessarily just specialty schools. Once you chose Pratt, and then when you landed there, what was it like settling in? And did you doubt your decision at any point?
So yeah, I was looking at the art programs at the regular universities as well, and at Pratt, and like throughout my research, I just came across how much better the art program, like the strength of the art program, is at Pratt, which is why I decided to choose an art specific school, just because of the strength of the program that I was pursuing. So when I went to Pratt, it was like a lot different from what I thought, but it still had a very community feeling to it, which is quite different from a few art schools like in New York, which is what I was expecting with Pratt. But since it's in Brooklyn, it has a more like community vibe to it and like more a home like feeling. So it was easy to like settle in as compared to what I thought it would be.
Right. So you got the campus you were looking for in a larger university setup or a liberal arts college setup. But what about choosing to go to a specialty art school in the early days? Once you started looking at the resources being offered, how did you start making those choices? What help did you seek? What advising was available? And then again, I'm going back to the question. So you had no reason to doubt, of course, for your decision. But when you compare, say, a Tufts education to, say, a Pratt education, uh, what differences have you heard of?
So like when I went there, I started to realize that even in terms of the resources or like the teachers and like just the events that happened to Pratt were like so focused on art and design. So like even the resources, the labs and everything we got, they were like catered to meet every need that we'd have like in terms of art and design. And I think when I started and I got into like my classes is when I realized how focused it is on art and design. um there were a couple of times when I felt um like a little unsure if I want to be in such a focused environment. But I feel like just the quality of classes kind of made me sure that um this is what I want to be pursuing.
Great. Can you give some examples of the kind of classes, the first semester or second semester, and the kind of advising or other resources in terms of exhibitions, access to opportunities for artists, which Pratt sort of does very well at?
So the first year's foundation year, so most majors have the same classes. So we had a drawing class, we had a light color and design class, which are year long, and then there's two studio classes that are actually semester long. So we have like a 3D design class that's a semester long and an animation class that's a semester long. So they're basically just aimed at getting everyone to this certain level that Pratt requires before we dive into our majors. And then we have a couple of like liberal art courses. So I had English literature, and then I had a science course which was astronomy, and then I have art history. In terms of like the resources, Pratt has like exhibitions of like senior students, graduating students, the faculties as well. There are opportunities to put up your own work, to submit your own portfolio for like scholarships and exhibitions, and even to like submit to the Instagram page. Um, then there's an organization at Pratt called the CCPD, which is for advising you for like internships, jobs, your resume, building all of that up. Um, and then And then like you have like talks from artists in New York, and you can attend those.
Right. So, as a high school student who applied for with an art portfolio and everything else, after meeting students there, what do you think you realized about your work, or what is it that you think you could have done better with your portfolio, and what are they really expecting?
So I feel like one thing I realized is that like nothing in like they have AP classes and like really art focused classes there where they really build their portfolio, use like a wider variety of mediums and materials. And I feel like that was one thing that I could have done better. And like they have like more like elaborate series. So like they choose one theme and they sort of really build on it. Which I feel was like not not so much there in my portfolio. There were like a variety of themes, but like there was not like an in-depth study on like one thing that I chose. So they're just basically looking at like the ideas that you have and how you choose, like how do you use like research and your existing knowledge and the space around you to like explore that idea further, and like what kind of materials other than just like the basic materials available around you use to like sort of bring like a new theme forward.
Sure. And since you were a graphic design enthusiast, you still are, or did you change your mind?
I'm still a graphic designer.
Okay. So if you were to reflect back on what is it that you submitted and what else you could have done with graphic design in particular, uh, comparing it with, say, other friends who you met there, any thoughts how you would do it differently, your portfolio?
I feel like I'd have like more digital pieces in my portfolio. I feel like that was really lacking because like graphic design has like a major influence of like the digital world, and like it's a lot of like it's revolving a lot around the digital world, especially now. So I feel like I would want to have more like digital art in my portfolio, like not necessarily like drawing digital art, but like just like logos or like branding or advertising. Yeah.
Okay, so identity and other things. Uh, how about the themes? You mentioned that students who came in, you felt were they had well thought out themes for their work,
Yeah.
which they worked on for a longer time. During this year, how is your art evolved, and how what themes are you really fascinated to sort of represent through art?
So like I feel like I've started like I've got into the habit of um researching more or like sketching more, making thumbnails before I start my final piece. So like the idea of process has become really important to me instead of like jumping right into like the final work. Um so like um in like animation, in like drawing, we were really talking about like just like our likes and dislikes, or like our inner subconsciousness, or like do we are we more of a narrative person or a rhythmic person. So like just these inner details that we were really focusing on, and I feel like those really help in arriving at like a larger work altogether.
What is the I'm switching to social life and opportunities. You mentioned how students can be engaged and even aim for scholarships, fellowships, and all of that. But on a day-to-day basis, after classes and after your studio work, what do you do?
So there are a lot of clubs at Pratt which aren't really serious. Like they're more for like just meeting new people, doing something different from what you do in your classes. And there are like a lot of clubs for like very different things. So there's video game clubs. There's a club for like the aquariums at Pratt that I'm a part of. So there are like a wide variety of clubs that people can be a part of. Then every weekend there are like events in our dorms as well that are hosted by the hall councils. And there's a program board which like continuously holds like events related to any festival that's coming. Um, Otherwise, like in general, Brooklyn's a place that is like really diverse and has like a lot of um, just tourist places or like just eating out or yeah. So there is a lot to do in the city itself.
Super. So, if you were to reflect on some of the classes you really liked, and also some of the clubs that you got really engaged with, what examples would you give, and why were those your favorites?
So I got into the aquarium club. It's called like the Reef Club. And at first, like by the name, it might sound kind of pointless or absurd, but I got to know that Pratt has like a lot of aquariums with a lot of like rare fish that are taken care at Pratt. And then we also sort of held this really large event called the Frag Swap, where like coral reef collectors and fish collectors from like the country come and they sort of put up their stalls where they can like exchange and buy like rare corals from each other, which is really interesting. And I feel like it's so different from what I'm doing that it's a great break from like classes and academics and just gives a chance to like learn about something so new, meet people who also have an interest in the same thing. Yeah. And
Fascinating. Who would have thought that you would sort of get involved in this? And about classes
yeah.
and
um
academics, which favorite sort of teachers, professors, and classes did you attend?
so I really liked um my light color and design class because like it sort of taught us like really key concepts about light and color and just really helped us look at light and color in like a really different way. So I learned a lot from that class in like very different ways, and like just learning the same idea through multiple medium or like through a different approach. And I feel like my teacher uh, knew like just the right order of assignments to give or like to conduct, so we'd really have like a thorough understanding of each subtopic. um, and I also really like my animation class because before this I'd never really tried like motion graphics or motion design. It was really new, and I feel like I really um, expanded my understanding of like different programs.
Excellent. Sounds like a fairly interesting mix of courses and activities that you've been doing. I also wanted to know a little bit more about the student body and how diverse it is, and in general, how welcoming that whole environment is. Plus, of course, the not just the rigor, but the vision of an art school in my head is that students spend many hours in the studio. Uh, so, what dynamic do you really need to succeed there with people, communication, some of the life skills to survive in a artsy environment at the same time a fairly rigorous artsy environment? Any thoughts?
um, so Pratt is pretty diverse. Like 36% of the Pratt body is international students. So like at no point did I feel really out of place. In my class itself, I think I had like a good 8 people out of 18 who were international students, which I think was great because that brought in like a lot of perspective into each like each assignment or each piece. In an art school, particularly like with like assignments and studio work, I feel like what's really important is to get used to critiques and to get the most out of them, because we used to have critiques after every piece. So wherein like the teacher would give you put up your work and the teacher would give you feedback and even the class would give you feedback. And like it's really important to participate in those because you like learn a lot from giving critique to someone just as much as you learn from receiving critique. So I feel like that the notion of like giving and receiving feedback and having that understanding between your peers and your teacher is something that really is required to like succeed in like an art school.
Well said. Very often when we look at art schools, we say, hey, where is the pre-professional track here? What would these students end up doing? I know you've chosen graphic design, and it obviously has commercial applications. But what did you find out more about art schools and how they prepare people for real jobs? And if you know seniors, and if you had conversations with alum, what is your take on that kind of environment where artists can also make a living, and how do universities and colleges like Pratt aid that process?
So I particularly like talk to my teachers who most of them have like are artists on their own with like galleries or like are working in an institution, and are also teachers at Pratt. And so, which is why I feel like the faculty shows that we have at Pratt are so important because they tell us the kind of work that they're doing apart from teaching at Pratt. And that sort of opens opportunity, like tells the students about the opportunities that they have after college in the real world. And then the CCPD like continuously gives us updates. We have we use the handshake portal wherein after filling our initial details, we get regular notifications from organizations that might want interns, so full-time interns, part-time interns, proper jobs. And so that sort of gives us like a starting point to look into like organizations and the kind of work these organizations want and how can it be related to what we're learning at college. So I feel like that's been really helpful in keeping us connected to like the outside world and how we can make a living.
Well said again. Now, I want to just touch upon these COVID times and the fact that your semester was cut short and you had to fly back home. And especially when you're doing art classes online, uh, it obviously changes everything, right? The kind of feedback, the critique, and even just being in the studio, all of that definitely is completely missed out. So, what do you think will be the future of art education if this lockdown continues and universities don't open soon enough?
It's definitely going to be a challenge because it's really hard to stimulate like a studio environment at home when you're not meeting in person. Um, but I feel like the biggest advantage that most art schools and especially Pratt has is the class size, since it's already extremely small. And a lot of our teachers, what lot of our teachers did was break us into even smaller groups, wherein each student was able to like screen share their work, receive critique from each and every person in the meeting. So I feel like smaller class size sort of ensures the involvement of everybody and still sort of keeps like the deadlines there, since you were expected to present your work every week like you would be in class. There still is this sort of rigor that's there in like studio classes.
Next question is got to do with kind of advice you would give students who feel disappointed with this whole COVID situation and haven't really had to deal with major disappointments earlier, but now here they are, they have to. What is it that you would say to them?
Um, I know starting college this way is certainly not something anyone would want, and I know how the whole orientation settling in is like a huge process, and it's really important. And obviously, this is going to be really different, and it's not going to be the same as being there. But this is something my light color design teacher always like kept telling us, and we had online classes that like being online is like a challenge and a learning in itself. Just getting used to motivating yourself and being able to work even when you're alone, and being able to show your work digitally is also something that's really important in like the real world. So this will be like a great preparation and a great learning for that. So like even out of this situation, there's just so much to learn of how to make the most out of the resources that are available to you. Just sort of adds an extra challenge, but also an extra learning to each and every assignment, to each and every task that you do.
Definitely wise words for sure. So I think let's switch gears. Let's figure out who you are as a person and how you've sort of evolved, I guess, in this 1 year. If you were to look back at certain embarrassing moments in high school, college, or failures or mistakes that you've made, what were the lessons and what happened?
Um, so the most embarrassing thing for me probably at college is like telling someone my name, because I say it in an Indian accent and they really just don't get it. And I have to say it 2 3 times before I realize that they're not going to get it, and then I have to sort of say it in an American accent for them to get close to saying it, and that gets really embarrassing sometimes. But then,
So is
like,
is it Tanvi or it's just Tanvi? Tanvi obviously the is not available in
yeah, they say different
syllable.
things.
Okay.
But like one thing I've learned from that is how we're like as Indians, we go there and we think that we'd have a trouble sort of like adjusting to them, and like English might be an issue. But I've realized that communication, like the hesitation to communicate, or like the anxiety that comes with communicating with someone from a different country, is just as much for them as it is for us. It's just as much a challenge and a struggle as we think it is for ourselves. So like just being patient when you're having a conversation with someone who might not have the same accent as you, or like not being really embarrassed to ask again, like if you don't understand something. Like I've learned that it's all right to ask again if you didn't catch something, and it's not embarrassing, or the other person's not going to take it negatively.
My second rapid fire question is about strengths. Which three adjectives describe Tanvi's strengths?
um I'd say adjusting, um positive, um and motivated.
That's great. If you were to look at the world now, and if it goes back to sort of normal, there's a post-COVID era now, and say the vaccines arrived, everyone's kind of safe and healthy. What are the two or three things you really are dying to go back to do? Not just necessarily in college, but in your life. What is it that you really want to go back to?
Sort of meeting people, because I really haven't stepped out of the house since I came back. So I'm just sort of really dying to meet people. Even just like going out of the house or just out of my area. Um, and Definitely going back to college and having classes in person.
So looking forward to that, Tanvi. It was fantastic learning about your interest in art, and also you informing us about opportunities art students have at Pratt Institute. So looking forward to your work in the future and inviting you to our office. Hopefully someday we can also provide you an exhibition space here at our Gurgaon Student Center. So look forward to that. The other thing is that we will be doing a panel of students for our students who are interested in applying to art schools, and I will be inviting you for that very soon. So look forward to reconnecting then. Bye.
Bye.